Hi, and welcome. I'm Brian Joyner, and it's with great joy, maybe a little fear, that I launch this first video of what I hope to be a weekly series while we're quarantining. I'm here at my home in Williamson, South Carolina, with my husband LJ and our two dogs. And I have to say, as much as my husband is enjoying the lounging, the TV, the ice cream every night, I'm a little bored. It's challenging for me not to be out doing things, running here, running there. But I think back to times of incredible frenzy in my life when I might have welcomed this sort of period of time. If I think about December of 2018, if you remember then, we had a very short time between Thanksgiving and Christmas. It was one weekend shorter, so there's a lot to do in a compressed time frame with shopping and holiday parties and end of year work stuff, budgets, everything we had to grapple with. I know there were days that I would have traded almost anything for just some time at home, alone, with just the people in my immediate household. But I'm not able to enjoy that right now. I think a lot of it is because is as much comfort and solace I might find in this shelter in place, there's so much bad happening out in the world. You read the newspaper, you go online, you watch TV. So much of it is negative and about COVID and people who are sick and people who are dying and the economy and loss of jobs, and it's stressful. We have this incredible sense of mental unease and disconnect because although we might want to enjoy the good and the happy and the joy of this sort of being at home relaxing, we have all of this horrible bad stuff that's going on in the world, and sitting with the good and the bad at the same time in our brains is challenging. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance. It's the uneasiness that comes from having two conflicting attitudes, beliefs, behaviors in your brain at one time. We see advertisers exploit this when they're trying to sell us prescription medication. Think about any kind of drug commercial you see on TV, and you know that the people sort of start out not really great in their lives. They take the drug, and then magically the visuals transform. People are with their dogs, their kids, there's parties and rainbows. It's phenomenal life. The visuals. Well, at the same time, this monotone narrator is telling us all the side effects. That if you were to listen to these side effects, you would probably run away, steer very clear of that particular medication. Our brains don't like to sit with that cognitive dissonance. Our brains want to resolve that conflict. And so we focus on these visuals because that's easier for us. I think now many of us are focused on negative things because that too seems a little bit easier for us right now because it's so present and it's so easy to go on your computer and find something, or go on your iPad and look at the news, pick up the phone and call someone and talk about how horrible things are. In this video, I'm going to teach you 3 ways that we can trick our brains and we can resolve cognitive dissonance to our favor. I've selected 3 readings from what I like to think of as scripture. For me, man put a cover on the Bible, God did not, and God continues to reveal wonder to us. Our first reading will be from whom I like to think of as a modern day prophet, and that's the poet Maya Angelou. The second reading will be from what many will consider traditional scriptures, and that's the Gospel of Matthew chapter 28, verses 1 through 10. Our third reading will be a kind of hokey presentation that my husband and I did at my mom's house. That is the parable of the fisherman and the banker. There's a kernel of wisdom in each of these stories, and I'm excited to share them with you. First, let's start with Maya Angelou and a dramatic reading of Still I Rise.
You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides. Just like hope springs high, still, I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes? Shoulders falling down like teardrops? Weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines. Digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness. But still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise into a daybreak that's wondrously clear. I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise.
Thanks, Janine, for that incredible reading of Maya Angelou's poem, Still I Rise. Miss Angelou reminds us that one of the most powerful ways that we can overcome our cognitive dissonance in this situation, the tension, that emotional discontent, is to add a new value to our beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors. And as this poem has done so well for victims of the oppressed, we hear its message of hope. It is an anthem of hope that with each line we can take on that mantra and say and know and believe in our future, because no matter what is happening, still we rise. Still I rise. I rise, I rise. So let us rise to this occasion. Let us add to our belief system this message of hope. Our next scripture passage is from the New Testament. My friend Christopher Dowling reads Matthew chapter 28, verses 1 through 10.
A reading from the Gospel of Matthew. After the Sabbath, at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples. He has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him. And now I have told you." So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid, yet filled with joy, and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly, Jesus met them. "Greetings," he said. They came to him, clasped his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me."
I'm sure I've heard this passage from Matthew chapter 28 hundreds of times in my life. But this is really the first instance where I've thought about the fear that these women experienced at the tomb. If you think about what had just happened, Jesus had been brought before the Roman government by the Jewish Pharisees, and he had been condemned to death, to crucifixion. The women, as they went to the grave, had to be afraid, because we know that some of the disciples, Peter, for instance, had been jailed. We don't know what had happened to the others, but we can't imagine. They had no idea what to expect when they got there and were truly fearful, especially when they got there and the stone had been rolled away and the guards were lying there as if dead. And the angel came out and said to them, "Do not be afraid." I can imagine this is one of those times where it's like if someone tells you to calm down. If in that situation, you just can't calm down. And I imagine if an angel tells you not to be afraid, it's probably not going to be that effective. So the women left the gravesite, fearful but with great joy, because they knew, they believed that Jesus had risen. And they ran as quickly as they could and came across Jesus, fell at his feet, worshiped him. Jesus sensed their fear. He knew what was going on. But unlike the angel, he was able to connect to the women and said, "Do not be afraid." And we can imagine that that message sunk in for the first time for these women, and that they went forth just with that great joy. Jesus reminds us that a great way to solve cognitive dissonance is to change an existing belief. The women grappled with fear and joy together, but Jesus said, "Do not be afraid. Put aside that fear." That's a valuable message for us. If we look at just what's going on in this particular moment, then we can bring out the joy. We can put aside our fear of everything that may happen, everything that is happening, but focus only on those things that bring us great joy. Our third reading is a modern day parable called The Fisherman and the Investment Banker.
An investment banker was taking a much-needed vacation in a small town when he came upon a pond with just one fisherman on it. The fisherman had caught several large fish, and the banker was impressed by the quality. Afternoon.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, how are you doing today? It looks like you caught some beautiful fish today.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
How long did they take you to catch?
Well, I've been out here about an hour and a half, so that's it. I'm gonna be wrapping up soon, though.
How come you don't stay out longer and catch more fish?
Well, I mean, these are enough for me to sell in town and make enough to pay for my family's basic needs.
But what do you do with the rest of your time?
The rest of my time, well, I'm pretty busy. I sleep late, come out and fish a little bit in the morning. Then I like to have a nice lunch, maybe a siesta with my spouse in the afternoon, work out, a little wine tasting with some friends downtown, hanging out. It's pretty basic.
I'm an Ivy League MBA, and I could really help you. You could spend more time fishing, and with the proceeds, you could probably buy a boat. And with the proceeds from using a boat, you could move on to a bigger lake, and you could soon have a whole fleet of fishing boats. Instead of selling your catch to the middleman, you could sell directly to the processing plant. Eventually, you could open your own cannery. You could control the product, the processing, and the distribution.
That sounds like a lot. How long would that take?
Well, of course, you need to leave this small pond and small town. If you want to run your growing enterprise, it would probably take maybe 15 to 20 years.
What would I do then?
Well, that's the best part. When the time is right, you would announce an IPO and sell your company's stock to the public. You would become very rich. You could make millions.
Millions? What then?
Well, then you would retire. You could move to a small town, where you could sleep late, fish a little, take a siesta with your spouse, stroll to the village in the evenings where you could sip wine and hang out with your friends.
So basically doing what I'm doing now.
This story's been around for decades. It's a reminder in this time that one of the best ways we can resolve cognitive dissonance is just to lessen the importance of our beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors. I participated in a Buddhist retreat, online retreat, recently through Plum Village and Thich Nhat Hanh's disciples. And one of the Dharma teachers talked about a lecture he gave. And at the end, during the question time, someone asked, "What is the meaning of life?" Now, you think that would stump a speaker, but the Dharma teacher reflected for a moment and then replied, "In order to understand the meaning of life, you have to ask yourself a slightly different variant of the question. How can I make this moment special and different?" What the fisherman and the banker story reveals to us, what this parable tells us, is that so often we're chasing dreams, and the ability to have the core of our dreams may be right in front of us. A way to resolve our cognitive dissonance is to reduce the importance of our beliefs. We can hold on to fear and great joy, but how important is it in this moment for us to allow that fear to rule our lives? Thank you for watching today's video, and I hope you found it enlightening and entertaining. We are dealing with an unprecedented situation, but we can still find joy in the midst of these fears. Think about Maya Angelou's poem, "Still I Rise," and hold on to this new attitude of hope. Think about the words of Jesus, who said to the women, "Do not be afraid." Remember the parable of the fisherman and the banker, and how so much of what we may be chasing is right in front of us now. We can reduce the importance that we place on some of our attitudes and values and live in this moment by making it special and looking to see what's different. As we conclude this video, I invite you to take the next 2 minutes for meditation, reflection, prayer, gratitude, or just to listen and enjoy this wonderful piece of music performed by my friend Jared Finsky. The piece is called "Oh, the Deep, Deep Love of Jesus," and it's wonderful. I'm so excited to share this with you. I look forward to seeing you again. Be safe, but have fun.